Good evening, gang, and welcome to It's All About Arts. My name is Glenn Williams, and I'm your host. And we're coming to you live from our beautiful studios here at BNN-TV, and you're more than welcome to join us if you'd like. We're at 617-708-3290 is how you get through. And Dave and the great gang here at BNN are answering phones in the other room, so if you'd like to let us know what's going on artfully in your community, please give me a call and let us know what's going on. In my community this past weekend in Rosendale, big congratulations go out to the committee that ran Rosendale Open Studios. It was a huge, huge success. Janice and I opened our Studio 99 up in Rosendale on Belgrade Avenue, and we had lots and lots of traffic. Thank you to everybody that came and visited us and dropped in to check out Janice and my artwork. It was great. Janice did fabulous. She sold an awful lot of pieces, and it was exciting to see. And on Friday night, we had a little reception cocktail party with invited some people over for a preview show, which was a huge success as well. We want to thank all the people that came to that. You know, I did get a chance to go around to some of the locations. I stopped in at the Emerald Society down in Rosendale Square, and it was packed. Packed with people. The square was exciting. I went over to Rosendale House, the old Rosie High on Poplar Street. You could barely move around. There were so many people in there. It was really, really an exciting weekend. Casey Appleman, Stephanie Cave, and the gang, the committee really deserve a big round of applause for all the work that they did. Janice and I stepped back last year, and we were off doing other things. Art, for one, being an artful couple, and doing some of that has been part of our focus. And Janice has done some great things, and a lot of them flew out of Studio 99. So thank you again, and give us a call. Let us know if you were out there this past weekend at Open Studios. Let me know how you did. Julie's out on location. My co-host, she's at a film festival off someplace, doing her thing. She'll be back very soon, in a couple of weeks, because we're not here next week, right? Next week we're off. She'll be back a couple of weeks and tell us all of her adventures, and we're looking forward to being with her and seeing how everything's doing. If she's streaming us wherever she is, hello, Julie, we missed you. We wish you were here with us. A couple of things coming up I know that I want to talk about. One of them being, we have a great guest tonight. Terry Kitchen is with us, who has written an amazing book on rock and roll, on being in a band and stuff. But him and I are going to be sharing a stage tomorrow night. We're very, very excited that Monkey's compilation CD is out and about, and the CD release party is tomorrow night at Johnny D's. We'll be gearing up around 7:30. But you want to be there for the whole show, because everybody that's on the CD is participating in the CD release party. So we'll be moving people up and off, up and off, up and off. There's several different bands coming in. Terry is one of the performers. He's been on both of our compilation CDs. The Beatles we did a little while back, and this tribute to the Monkees. I have to be honest. When Tim brought up the Monkees, my first reaction was, I was never really a big fan. I was a fan of the TV show, I guess, and I always kind of looked at it as Hollywood's answer to the Beatles, like, let's put four crazy guys with long hair on TV, pretend they're in a band, and put them in wacky situations, which they did. But they had songs that were associated with the show and stuff like that. And even back then, as a musician, I could tell that they weren't really doing it. But this has been an eye-opening experience for me, because I was not a huge fan, but as we got deeper and deeper into the songs and stuff, the material is great. There's some great material. I've picked a couple of Mike Nesbitt's. Oh, I'm sorry. Are they calling the correct number? I don't know. Probably not. But you want to silence your phones out there, gang. Sorry about that. We're looking for a guest. They'll get here. But I picked a couple of Mike Nesbitt's songs because I think Mike was a really prolific songwriter, and he kind of writes in a style that I really enjoy playing. So I broke out the ukulele and did a couple of songs. Magnolia Sims. See, some of the songs that we're gonna be playing aren't, you know, the run-of-the-mill when you think of the Beatles. I mean, Last Train to Clarksville, Hey Hey, where the Monkees are gonna be there. Those kind of songs are gonna be played as well, the hits. But a lot of people in the stable grabbed different songs, you know, and songs that were kind of B-side songs and songs that weren't the major hits. And Magnolia Sims is just a lovely little tune, and I'm doing that, and I'm also doing Joanne by Mike Nesmith, and with the lovely and great Ruby Bird singing with me. This song, it's really, she multiplies the song just by her presence. But some of the other people, I said Terry Kitchen, Bird Mancini's going to be there, MC4, which is, of course, the great Mr. Kurtz group. Tim Casey is the executive producer of the album and the force behind Low Budget Records. So he's doing a bunch of great monkey tunes. There's also going to be, Bonnie Gordon is going to be there. Zen Armada is a band that my good friend Andy Hollinger is playing on. They're going to be there. Thunderbolt Derby, Big City Ramblers. It's great. I got to put these cheaters on to make sure I get everybody in there. The Rick Gogan Quartet, Capital Six, Junk Dealers, Steve Gilligan, the great Steve Gilligan, the bass player from the Stompers for years and years, and played with John Macy in several different bands. Great Steve Gilligan's going to be there. And the Low Budget All Stars, which is a kind of a conglomeration of all of us together getting up there and doing a bunch of songs. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's at Johnny D's, and that is tomorrow night at Johnny D's. The address over there is it's in Davis Square, right in the middle of Davis Square in Somerville. So why don't you come on down? It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get started around, like I said, 7:30, and we'll be playing for at least 2.5 hours straight. There'll be no breaks, because after you're done playing, you kind of step off and you don't come back up for a while. So it'll be a lot of fun. The other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is the Rosendale Village Main Street's Farmers Market. The Farmers Market has been dwindling down, and it's got just a couple of weeks left, so come on down to Rosendale Village on Saturdays from 9 o'clock till 1:30 in the afternoon. Excuse me. I'm usually there I'm there every Saturday, spinning some records and making some announcements and being part of the fall drawl, you know. So come on down and try to enjoy your community. It's a great opportunity to get down there and see your neighbors and have some fun. It's the Farmers Market has been, they're there for 22 Saturdays during the spring, summer, and fall, and it's coming to the end. I think this is the 29th year that Rosendale has had a Farmers Market, and it is now the Farmers Market in the city. I think it's been ranked #2 in all of the area. So we're kind of very fortunate for all the success, and that's Rosendale Village Main Streets that does most of that and does all of that. You know, Main Streets is our partner here, and we are very fortunate for our association and our partnership with them. It's been many years that we've been working together with them. Main Streets is a volunteer organization that helps revitalize the business districts in several different parts of the city, Rosendale being the first one, when the great mayor now and then was city councilor Tom Bonino brought to a urban setting this Main Street program, which was kind of like a strip mall type of, you know, industrial type of program that had been started many years ago, but now it has been moved to an urban setting. They wanted to try it out to see if it would work in a community with a business district that's kind of been downtrodden and maybe not as successful as it possibly can. And boy, Rosendale Square in the mid-'80s was all that. There was not a lot going on down there. There were grates on all the buildings. A good friend of mine, like I say often, Greg Lahem, who owns the pharmacy, said there were more drugs on the street than there were in his pharmacy. And boy, it was close. It wasn't a safe place to be. And then the Main Street program came along and did all kinds of work with the property owners and with the business owners and got some new kind of signage up and put some programs together and started throwing egg hunts for the kids in the spring, and tree lighting and holiday lightings for in the fall, and farmers markets and concert series and different tastes of this. And now what it is that Rosendale is now not just a great community, but it is a destination for people to come to. So we want to thank the Main Streets program for all their support through the years, and look forward to doing many more programs with them. We're very, very, very fortunate to be associated with them. It's been great. I mean, we've flourished here, and the show has grown, and we're very, very proud of the work that we do. The other thing I like to talk about when I'm here is this building that we're in, BNN-TV. BNN is your television station. It's your opportunity to talk and get your message out, learn how to do programming, come and become a member and learn how to use these fascinating and amazing cameras and lighting, and take classes in Final Cut Pro and sound, and how to light a stage, how to shoot, you know, a program, and how to do the editing and get it on TV. This is the place to come and do it. This side, there's two stations. There's Channel 9 that you're watching right now, and then there is Channel 23. 23 is the station where it's called Access. It's where the community has access to put programming on TV that they want to do. Channel 9 is news and information, and it's more of a nonprofit. Nonprofits get an opportunity to get their programming and their mission out, so that the people in the city, and now outreaching, way out now, because we're streaming live. I mean, right now, I know that we have people that are watching us in Portland, Oregon. I know that there are people in upstate New York. There are people in Illinois that are watching our show. There are people down in Florida. And all that is because we've had guests here who have family in those different parts of the country and the world. And they call them and say, hey, get online, www.bnntv.org. Click on what's playing right now, and this program comes up. You can do that any time of the day. And whatever's on this channel will stream live to your computer, your iPhone, your iPad, whatever media you're using these days. So if you're interested in being involved in that, and I think that you really should, you got to go to www.bnntv.org. Click on Janice Williams' name. She's the manager of membership, and she knows all the ins and outs and all the paths to take to get yourself on TV, but you know, it's not just to get yourself on TV. I think it's also a great opportunity for the nonprofits of the world to get their message out there, so that people will get a better understanding of what they're doing and why they're doing it. They can bring their own guests on here and talk about what it is that they think is important for their community. It's a great venue, and it's a great voice, and it's your voice, and you should be using it. So www.bnntv.org gets you to all of that information that you need to get yourself on TV. Tomorrow's election day. I hope everybody gets out there and votes. It's probably one of the most important elections in a long, long time. It looks like our city council is going to change face a bit. It looks like it's definitely the corner office, the mayor's office, is going to change. You know, I'm a big supporter of Mayor Tom Menino. I've worked with him and worked with the great John Cushing out in Rosendale, and we've both worked hard for the mayor and for different candidates that we support and that we know that will be great for our community. You know, I'm having a hard time. You know, everybody that I think that was running for the mayor's seat, everybody was so qualified. I mean, it was just there's so many people to pick from, and so many qualified people to pick from. And you know, this is going to last a long time tomorrow. So I want you to tune in here to BNN. I know that Joe Heisler is going to be here. He's going to have some of his guests on here, and they're going to be covering this right up till 11 o'clock. And I don't know if they'll have an answer by then. I mean, it's going to be a long night here at BNN. So this is going to be the station to tune into, because Joe usually has, you know, the local guys and women that know it all and that are part of the operative process, and the insiders in this great city of Boston. You know, people have come and talked to me, well, yeah, it's, you know, it's an election. I said, yeah, but it's Boston politics, and it's nothing more exciting than that. So tomorrow is the day. Please make sure that you get out there. Go and vote, then go see us over after you've exhausted that whole thing. Come over and see us at Johnny D's uptown in Davis Square. It's going to be a great, great event. We're very, very excited about it, and we're looking forward to it. You know what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little break, and the great Terry Kitchen is here, and we had other guests. I don't know where they asked. We're going to spend some extra time with Terry. I'm really excited about it. Terry's going to talk about a great new book that he has written. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Monkees. We're going to talk a little bit about rock and roll. We're going to talk a little bit about Terry, too. You know, I mean, you know, you always hear that name and you hear his performances and stuff, but I think it's also going to be really great and beneficial to sit here and talk with him on a personal note for a bit, too. He's a good old friend of mine. I've shared stage with him on great occasions, and it's always been fun, and I look forward to tomorrow night. So listen, gang, you're watching BNN-TV's It's All About Arts. My name is Glenn Williams, and I'm your host, and we're coming to you live from our beautiful Studio B here at BNN-TV, and you're more than welcome to join us. 617-708-3290 is how you get here. And, you know, there's one other thing is I've gotten a lot of emails about how do I get to see that show I enjoyed a couple of weeks ago. I want my, you know, my aunt, my uncle, my daughter, my so-and-so to see the show. If you go to YouTube, on YouTube we have a station there. It's called It's All About Arts 1. All the programs that we've been doing have been loaded up there, so you can see them at your leisure when you want, and that's our on-demand there. So give that website, YouTube website, it's called It's All About Arts #1. That's how you find some of our stuff. So listen, gang, like I said, you're watching BNN-TV's It's All About Arts. My name is Glenn. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Please don't go away. The great Terry Kitchen is in the studio, gang. We're going to be talking a lot about music. So hang in there, gang. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Please don't go away.
Hold your finger over a candle. There's a good chance that you'll get burned. So when that same old flame comes calling, honey, remember what you have learned. See him smile, hear him whisper. He's just playing, and he doesn't play nice. So tell me, who's the fool if you let him break the same heart twice? Tell me, who's the fool if you let him break the same heart twice? He's so pretty from a distance, and he always knows just what to say. It's the path of least resistance to fall for him this way. But he won't be there to catch you. He'll be rolling like tumbling dice. So tell me, who's the fool if you let him break the same heart twice? Tell me, who's the fool if you let him break the same heart twice? Hold your finger over that candle. There's a good chance that you'll get burned. So just blow it out, babe. Tell him it's over. That ship is sailed and the tide has turned. 'Cause sorry just isn't good enough when it's you who will pay the price. Just walk away, baby, forget him. Don't let him break the same heart twice. Don't let him break it, babe. Oh, just forget him. Don't let him break the same heart twice.
Well, thanks an awful lot for hanging in there with us, gang. My name is Glenn Williams. You're watching BNN-TV's It's All About Arts, and I want to let everybody know that we are streaming live right now at www.bnntv.org. And if you want to see this program again later on, it'll be online tomorrow on YouTube at the YouTube station, and the address on YouTube is It's All About Arts 1. Get you right to that, the station that we've been collecting all of our material at. That's the only place you can see any past shows. And listen, gang, it's right now my great pleasure and honor to welcome back to BNN's Studio B, old friend and fellow musician Terry Kitchen. Hello, Terry.
Hello, Glenn.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Always a pleasure.
No, it's great to have you here. You've been on a couple of times and you've performed, but now, you know, you're here in a different aspect, But before we get to the book we want to talk about, what do you think of tomorrow night?
It's going to be fun.
No, I mean, who are you voting for? No, I'm only, don't tell me, please. No, I'm just Johnny D's again. It's going to be.
Yep. Yeah, I was there in August for a benefit for a documentary movie that's being made about the Rathskeller nightclub.
Oh, the Rat in Kenmore Square.
Legendary night spot, back in the 70s, 80s, closed down in the mid-90s. And a bunch of us bands that used to play there got together and did a benefit so the filmmaker can finish his movie.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That sounds exciting.
Yeah. It's called Let's Go to the Rat.
Let's go to I've probably said that a couple of times myself.
Yep.
Who else played on the benefit?
Oh, Rick Berlin.
Oh, really?
And Rick Berlin is one of the artists that this book that I just wrote is dedicated to.
Uh-huh.
He's a fabulous artist.
Any of the Real Kids, any of the Neighborhoods, or any of those guys show up?
Not the Real Kids or the Neighborhoods, but we had some other great bands as well. Lizzie Borden and the Axes played.
That's great.
Yeah, Jamie Shaler.
Yeah,
a lot of good people.
Those days, those days are gone forever, of course. But the days of the Cantones and the Rat and those Bunratties and all of those Gladstone places, it's gone now.
Well, they're new places, We're a little older, so we probably don't get out, as much.
We don't start at 11 anymore.
Right. But yeah, it was a really fun scene, back in the 80s time period.
Yeah. Did you play on the Beatles compilation?
I
Did you play it at the
show at Johnny D's?
At Johnny D's?
Yeah.
So you kind of know what to expect tomorrow night. Chaos.
No, or controlled chaos. Controlled chaos. Just enough chaos to be interesting.
Well, just think about having to get that many people on and people off.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
You're a singer-songwriter, and you've been in the business for a long time. Award-winning singer-songwriter. You've been recognized several times. How is it going nowadays? How are the gigs going?
Fun. I just played this past weekend down in Pennsylvania and down in New Jersey. Some shows down there. So it's always fun to get out and play.
Right.
Get me out of my little room.
Everybody's got a room these days.
Yeah.
Is there any new CDs on the brink, or have you been kind of dedicating your time to this?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent the last few years working on the book, but then when we were done, with the book itself, I did a little companion CD for the book.
Yes, there's a. Where did you record this?
Some of it is from my little room in Roslindale.
Yeah, your Rosie room.
Yeah, it's called Rose House, named after our cat.
Does Rose get in there at all to sit with you while you're working?
There's some clumps of consonants from the original draft of the novel where she would jump up on the computer keyboard and the keys would get pinned down. Yeah. And then there are actually a couple Loose Ties tracks from the 80s.
Are there really? So there's some nostalgia in here as well.
Yep. That was my band, my rock band back in the 80s.
Terry, tell me, what was it that, instilled you? What came over you that said, I have to write all this down?
Well, a couple things. A friend of mine named Christian Bauman, who's from down in New Jersey, who's a very accomplished author, was a folk musician back in the 80s and the 90s. And he wrote a book called In Hoboken that was sort of about the New York, New Jersey folk scene. And even though I was based up here, I knew a lot of the people, and I thought, what a great idea. I mean, it was such a great scene. What a great way to capture it. And so I remembered back to my days in Loose Ties in the 80s, and it was a really exciting time in Boston for a lot of reasons. There were a lot of great bands. There are always great bands here, but at the time there was a band called The Cars, who were based here, and they had just opened a studio of their own on Newbury Street. And one of their sort of stated goals of the studio was so that they could help other bands get started, and do some recording.
That wasn't Intermediate Sounds, was it?
No, it was called Synchro Sounds.
Synchro Sounds.
Yeah, and it was right across from the original Newbury Comics record store, right on that first block of Newbury Street, right next to Mass Ave. And I had spent the last 5 years out in Los Angeles. I'd gone to college out there, and was also sort of feeling out the music business. And in LA, the music business was so divided into the haves and the have-nots. There's Fleetwood Mac, where everybody arrives at the gig in their own limousine, and then there are the bands starting out at places like the Troubadour, where to get a gig, you had to buy 100 tickets yourself and then give them away to your friends just to try to get people in the door, just to get the gig. So to come across a band that was actually wanted to try to help people get started seemed like fabulous. So we loaded our guitars and amps in the van and moved to Boston, and it was a lot of fun. And aside from The Cars, there was the band Boston,
Yeah.
A band called Aerosmith, you may have heard of. You know, the Jay Giles Band were, you know, sort of at their peak at that time. So that's they're sort of way up here on the pyramid, and we're kind of down here, you know, trying to like inch our way up the, you know, the outside of the pyramid and wind our way around and get higher.
Yeah.
But when we got here, we found out there were about 2,000 other bands doing the same
Yes,
thing.
everybody doing that.
So you know, it was crowded, but there was a lot of great music going on, and we all didn't get to be rich and famous, but we all had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, were there levels of clubs back then? I mean, there's, you know, there was the Channel, of course, and there were places, you know, that were pretty showy rooms.
Yeah, the Paradise, which is still there on Commonwealth Avenue, that was kind of like the gold standard, you know, where...
But then there's Cantones,
which was sort of down at the...
down at the waterfront.
Yeah, there's a line, I think, in the book that, you know, you know, play at Cantones and you get a tetanus shot on your way in the door. You know, it was pretty
a big
grody.
plate of spaghetti.
Yeah, it was a restaurant.
It was a restaurant
but who
during
would
the
eat
day.
there? I mean, who would eat there?
I ate there.
Okay, all right. But there were, you know, fist holes in the walls.
Yeah, it was a real
broken
rock room.
furniture.
Yeah.
And the
I
Rat.
can't believe how long they hung in there.
Yep. And the Rat, of course, was sort of like kind of the spiritual center, I think. And because the Rat, there was the downstairs basement room where the bands played, you know, because the full name is Rathskeller, which is the rat cellar, you know, in the original German. And then upstairs, there was sort of the hangout spot, you know. If you didn't want to go down and listen to the band, you sort of still could hang out upstairs. And for a while, there was actually a barbecue restaurant there. And then they had a balcony, so you could even play acoustically on the second floor. And we had some great nights, you know, playing unplugged, you know, when the unplugged craze started, you know, playing up in the balcony. So that was a lot of fun.
Now, with the ones we've mentioned are obviously Boston clubs, but across the river.
Across the river,
there's lots of places.
A place called Jack's.
Jack's
right on
was
Mass
great.
Ave.
I remember the fire.
And which you know, may have been for insurance reasons. You know,
Many have dared say it since.
Yes, but the great thing about Jack's was when we were new in town, we didn't know anybody. So, you know, the way to get people to come to your shows is you get all your friends. You know, a lot of bands start in college and they get everybody from their fraternity or from their dorm to come, and then they've got 50 people in the house, and it seems like a big, you know.
And they're enthusiastic because they know you.
Absolutely. And this is back when we first moved here. At the drinking age was 18, right. So you could get, you know, all the colleges in Boston, all the BU and BC kids and MIT kids, they could all go to the clubbing every night, and they did.
Yeah.
So every club was full every night. So the great thing about Jack's was it had this big glass window. So even though we didn't know anybody, people would walk by and see us on stage and get kind of curious, and you know, we'd see them outside the window, you know, sort of staring in. Yep. And then, you know, if they liked you, they'd come in.
Right,
you know, so by the end of the night, we'd always have a full house because people would walk by and then, you know, and then come on in.
Tell me about what happened to the band. I mean, did the band does this kind of follow the band, or does it follow the culture?
Well, it's some of both. You know, the main character in the book happens to be a songwriter. You know, like I might happen to be a songwriter.
Who went to college in California?
Well, actually, in the book, it's more a transition from Ohio, from the farm fields of Ohio to Boston.
So this is a novel.
It's a novel.
Yeah, it's not a.
It's not a memoir.
I don't have to worry about people's names popping up.
No, I definitely wanted it to be a novel so that I couldn't get sued. But you know, I mean, the rule for the book is if you were famous enough that people around the country would know you at the time the book happened, then like Aerosmith, you know, there were a couple encounters with some people in the band, and so obviously people would know, you know, all the readers, you know, everywhere would know who Steven Tyler is. So Aerosmith sort of gets to be Aerosmith. But for other bands on the scene, you know, I made up those names or made up those bands because, you know, even though I used some sort of real-life incidents, I didn't want people to sort of be...
Would Alpo and Billy Borgioli be big enough to mention?
Probably not. You know,
Alpo, I like Alpo a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun people back on the scene.
Yeah.
You know, but a band like Till Tuesday, when we were starting out, you know, they were just another local band, and then 2 years later, they're, you know, they're huge now.
Yeah. Talk about the writing thing. Is it, as a songwriter, I mean, there's a certain discipline that you use. But sitting down in writing a story is a little different. It's a different discipline.
In songwriting, you really have to choose what to leave out because, you've got maybe 3 verses and a chorus to make your point. And so you just choose these little moments that are going to tell the whole story. But in a book, you've got more space, but you still have to pick and choose. You can't have your main character get up and brush his teeth every morning. That's not going to be a very compelling story.
Right.
So you've still got to really pick and choose. But it took me a little while to learn that. So I worked on the book for, quite a while to get it to a point where I felt it moved forward. And spent time on the important moments and didn't have a lot of filler.
Did you have anyone looking over your shoulder?
Yeah, I did, in a good way.
No. I mean that in a good way.
Yeah. Although when my cat was a kitten, she would sit on my shoulder.
How much help was that?
Yeah.
Aside from the
It was very
purring,
sweet, though.
soothing purring.
And then she'd jump on the keyboard. But I was involved in a couple different writers groups where we'd get together every month and we'd trade pages ahead of time with the meeting, and that way, people who were familiar with the story you were trying to tell could say, well, I kind of got lost here, or maybe people who weren't in the scene in 1984 wouldn't understand about what somebody who looked like Thomas Dolby with the moose in his hair, she blinded me with science, what that, maybe you have to describe that a little more for somebody who wasn't there, trying to split the difference between making sure it moved forward for the people who do sort of know that background, but then have enough detail so the people, just who don't necessarily have the same history could also enjoy the story.
Right. The reason I bring that up is because there's a lot of students that watch our program to meet artists and to find out. Is it something you recommend?
Oh, absolutely. It was a challenge for me to figure out what I could bring to this story. Like, the Boston scene was a great scene. Steven Tyler wrote a pretty interesting memoir, a lot of it based sort of in Boston. And a guy named Tom Huck, who used to play with the Atlantics, wrote a novel based in the Boston scene. And
did you read those first?
I wanted to wait until I was done with mine, or at least done with the draft of mine, so I could sort of get my initial thoughts down on paper before I was either repeating what somebody else had done or trying to swerve to avoid repeating what they'd done. So I wrote my first draft first, and then I read the other books, and then tried to figure out what I can bring that's different than what other people have written.
You are looking at it from your window.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there are your experiences there, and your victories and disappointments, and all of that as well.
Yeah, which is, but a lot of the milestones sort of for every band are the same. Maybe the first time you hear yourself on the radio, is an important moment. If you do a record, back in the day it was actual vinyl.
Vinyl, a record, yeah.
So that was, and there's the little 45, with maybe 2 songs, and then the album, which is,
Well, the whole recording process back in the 80s was so different than what we're familiar with today. I mean, you actually needed to be able to get into a room.
Studio, right.
You couldn't do any, you could do your, garbage stuff at
demo tape,
tapes at home, but nothing
like you can do with GarageBand or some of the really good programs out there now.
Today, kids are doing phenomenal things right in their bedrooms, which is very exciting, I think, for the music business. It's maybe not as exciting for the music business as it is for the music business.
Well, you can, everybody can be a peer now. It's a little easier to record and get your songs down, but back at the time, it was a really big deal to make a record. It was a real sort of dividing line, and the whole goal, and in the book, I think it captures a lot of this. The whole deal is like trying to get one of the big record companies from New York, like Capitol Records or Warner Brothers, whatever, to like put that contract in front of you, and you sign on the dotted line.
And it was a big, you went into the big man's office and the whole thing. It's just like you think it is, isn't it?
Yeah. So which is great, but it didn't happen for everybody, and there were a lot of bands that were pretty good that never happened for. Right. So, I think the band in the book, they're good enough that it could happen, but they're not so brilliant or beautiful or whatever that it's obvious that's going to happen. So I think, hopefully it keeps the reader interested about whether or not the cards are going to fall. I'm not. Absolutely not. I'm not. But, you got to read the book. But they're sort of on that line. You know, it could happen for them, or maybe it wouldn't happen for them, and you gotta, you know.
Well, speaking of reading the book, have you done your reading yet down at the library?
Oh no,
That's coming up, isn't it? When is
yep,
that?
Thursday, November 14th. I'll be at the Rosendale branch of the Boston Public
There's
Library.
that Rosendale again.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a place.
It's you know, it's a happening place.
It really
and
is.
it's very sweet of them to have me. It's being
Yeah, they're really reaching out and doing a lot of great things down there. It's going to be, they've gotten some money from the city to renovate the place. There's all kinds of exciting things. Could you read a segment for us tonight?
Yeah, I'd be honored to. And also, I wanted to mention one other, since you mentioned the Rosendale reading, then the following Wednesday, which is November 20th, I'm going to be at the Trident bookstore. And I really wanted to read there because it's directly across Newbury Street from where the Cars studio was.
Yeah.
So there was Newbury Comics, which is still there, and then the Trident bookstore, and then right across the street was the door to the Cars studio, which was kind of like the door to heaven. You know?
Yeah.
You know, if you got in
The
that
answer.
door, if you got in that door, man, you were golden. So here we go. This is from Next Big Thing. I'm biking up Newbury, just a few blocks over from Kenmore Square, on the rusty 10-speed I'd brought from Ohio. Good thing, too, since the bike's gotten me employed, unlike my multi-thousand-dollar Antioch degree. It's my first day messengering for pedal pushers, and I should be rushing contracts downtown so some corporate law firm can make yet another fortune squeezing the proletariat. But I'm pretty sure I just saw Elliot Easton of the Cars walk down from Boylston, and I'm tracking him, weaving slowly between the double and triple parked delivery vans. In my shoulder bag, alongside the contracts, is a cassette of our Berkeley demo, and this could be the perfect moment to slip it to him. I don't have a clear plan, but I'm hoping he'll say, "Stop for takeout," and I'll ditch my bike and maneuver myself next to him at the counter, and we'll strike up a conversation about our favorite surf rock guitarists. And he'll invite me back to the studio to hang out, and we'll eat crab rangoon in the lounge while our tape blasts over their $10,000 Jensen studio monitors. Rick Ocasek will rush in, breathless, saying, "Who the heck are those guys?" And the next thing you know, it'll be our gold record on the wall.
Of course. Oh, that's great.
Let me just read a couple more paragraphs
keep
down.
going, keep going.
So Elliot, however, turns off Newbury towards Commonwealth, heading away from their studio. Damn. Maybe it's not Elliot after all. Maybe it's just some other skinny mod with a rubber sole haircut. I never really did get a good look at his face. Oh well, next time. While I'm there, I stopped by Will's new job at a record store called In Your Face to tell him to keep a lookout for Easton and the other Cars. I scan the store, see racks of Clash and Sex Pistols t-shirts and posters along the walls, and long rows of punk and new wave imports down the aisles. What I don't see, however, is Will. Check your bag? The Jam's Town Called Malice is on the stereo at a discreet 110 decibels, so it's a little hard to place the voice. I turn behind me, and pointing at my knapsack is a blonde chick with serious cheekbones. I shake my head no. Will around? I shout. The new guy? I think he's at lunch. I lean closer so I don't have to yell. Could you tell him Mark stopped by? I play in a band with him. Okay. You play with the Ocelots, right? I've seen her picture and scream. Used to. We broke up. Sorry. No biggie. I'm getting a new band together. Staying in the feline realm? She looks at me like I'm an idiot and goes back to pricing LPs. I take that as a no and jump on my 10-speed.
The names. That's great.
Oh, thanks.
Terry, that's awesome.
Thanks.
That's really exciting. Talk about Loose Ties for a couple of minutes. I know that they're in there.
Yeah, well, you know, a version of Loose Ties.
Well, if you're looking out your window, they've got to be there.
Yeah.
What kind of success did you guys have in the '80s? Did you get in? You got into the big rooms.
We did. We you know, we got played, you know, every club in town certainly, and you know, we got, you know, did the thing of like going to New York, and the interesting thing about that time period, because again, it was so focused on getting the New York record companies to like, you know, to like you and you know, and offer you that contract, is what bands would do is they would rent a bus and fill it with their fans and then bus their fans down.
Oh my God.
So this is true. I mean, you know, Rick Berlin used to do it all the time, and you know, we did it, and you know, The Drive and other bands, where, you know, because really what you're doing is you're trying to showcase for the labels. You know, you're trying to get, you know, Mr. Big from Arista Records or whatever, Clive Davis or whatever, to come out and check out your band. So if they do that, you want to make sure you've got a room full of screaming streaming people who love everything you do.
You've got to seed the audience.
Right, right. So, you know, so again, because we were a Boston band, so people in New York didn't really know us. You know, we'd maybe had songs on the radio up here, but not down there. So we would bus fans down there, and then and then play at the China Club or whatever down there. And we had we put out a record, and I'm very proud of it. I think it's really good. But we never got the big fat record contract. Like when the Cars got signed, there were maybe six or seven different record labels who were interested in them, and they had this little bidding war. And we'll give you, well, 3 albums with this much of advance. Well, maybe we'll give you a contract for 5 albums with this much of an advance. And
5 albums.
And that sort of which is what everybody dreams of course. And then they came through because their first album, there's every song on the first album was was a hit, and they kept getting better. So and there are a lot of bands that even if they got the contract, it still didn't happen for them. So, the record companies would say, now you got the contract, now you really got to start to work, But it was really fun, it was really fun doing that. And we had come from Ohio. We'd met in this little town in Ohio called Findlay. And then I'd gone off to college in Los Angeles to try to scope out the scene. But the other guys in the band didn't want to move so far away from home.
Yeah.
So
that'll do it.
So, and LA was, at the time, this is, early 80s, and the air was brown, and, so again, I'm reading this article in Rolling Stone, Cars opening own studio, and, and so we came here for a weekend. We just, jumped in the van and came for a weekend to check it out. And there were so many clubs and so many places to play that we thought, we got to do it.
Got to stay.
We got to do it. So, we did. Our first year, we got a house in Rockport, up the coast a little bit.
That's okay.
And it was the off season, so it was dirt cheap, and we had a basement we could practice in, every night. So we, got our chops together and then started coming down and playing places like the Rat. Our first official Boston gig, like every Boston band, is new band night at the Rat, and went from there and ended up, doing some tapes and getting on the radio and doing a record.
Do we miss that kind of thing in Boston now?
I think it's still here. Berkeley still brings in lots of talented people from all over the country.
Yeah, but I'm talking about that whole new band night at the Rat, and I mean I don't know that there's those kind of venues now. I mean you can call All Asia and take the room and do what you want with it and things like that. But it's kind of hard, I think, these days to get a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night into any of these clubs.
Yep. Well, there's a guy. Local guy named T-Max, who is a publisher of The Noise, which is a great little music fanzine. And I'd talked to him, when I was working on the book, because he knows everything about every band that ever played in Boston, because that's been his sort of day job for the past 30 years. It's been publishing The Noise, and I actually used to write for The Noise. I'd go out and review some bands that I liked, and it was really fun, to get to share your opinion, before there was an internet, you couldn't just post it online.
No, you had to go down to the Midway and grab your Noise.
Absolutely.
That's the only way to find out.
So I was talking about, again, the 80s, which is when the book is set, and it did really feel like, for that moment, the zeitgeist, was really here. There was, the Cars and Aerosmith on top, and then all these other bands. And T-Max said, pretty much everybody who was involved in the scene at any time feels like they were part of something special. Yeah. And I think that's a human response. But I think the time when in the early days, it really was something special.
There's no doubt. I have a great friend of ours, a great friend of mine, Mr. Kurt, who was with Pastiche and stuff, and he's kind of. I never say this right to him, but he's kind of like the guy that was, in our crowd that was kind of that big 80s and 70s. And of course, he broke in the 60s and in the 50s when he was playing with, no, he didn't play in the 50s. I'm sorry, Kurt. I won't do that. But he's kind of like the guy, that everybody kind of remembers as being a guy that was in that scene and pretty successful in that scene. And he talks about it too as being, he still writes for The Noise.
Sure, yep.
He's still working with T-Max and still playing rock and roll. Yep. He's going to be there tomorrow night. Yep. So that's kind of like the crowd that we've kind of surrounded ourselves with. And you're right, it is kind of special to have been part of something of that kind of It's history.
Yeah, it really was.
And this is a great reference and walk through on a novelist.
Right,
Yeah,
it's fiction, but it's set in the scene. The places are the real places.
Let me get a picture of this. You even used it on the back. That's great.
It's a photo by Tim Casey, as Glenn mentioned, is the head of Low Budget Records, and he invited us all to get our picture taken when we did the Beatles compilation.
Yeah.
And
so
we used the
These guys are good.
So we used the headshot for that with Tim's permission for the back cover of the book.
It's very nice. And there's a CD in here.
The CD comes right with the book.
There's music with the book.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you can get it at all of the normal places.
All the normal places. Yep. Starting with my website, but Amazon, and it's also an ebook. So if you have one of those little e-readers like an iPad, you can download it right onto your iPad and read it that way.
Terry, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say one quick thing.
Sure.
Before we went on, we played a song from the soundtrack.
Yes.
And that's it wasn't me singing. It's a song that I wrote called "Same Heart Twice." And there were a lot of songs in the book, so it was really fun. I'd be working on a scene on my typewriter, and it's a song, a story about a band. So they'd be at a rehearsal or
Didn't
at a
need
gig.
a song, yeah.
So there's this song, and then I'd in the scene, so I'd stop and write the song. And so this one song, Same Heart Twice, my friend Rebecca Lynch, who's a really talented singer, and I went to college with her out in LA, and now we're both in the Boston area, so I invited her to sing the song. She did a great job.
That's great. Yeah. Terry, thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow night.
All right, Johnny D's.
Don't forget to vote. Johnny D's tomorrow night, guys. We're all going to be there 7:30 out in Somerville and Davis Square. We're doing a CD release party for Monkeys CD. There'll be plenty of them there. There it is right there. Barrel of Monkeys.
A low-budget
barrel of monkeys. Terry Kitchen, thank you so much for being here with us. Listen, gang, thanks an awful lot for coming, being with us tonight. It's been a lot of fun. We won't be here next week. We have next week off. It's a holiday. But I like to say, everybody get out there and do something awful. Get out and see us tomorrow night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Come up and say hello, please. I'll be having plenty of breaks. I mean, I'm playing at the beginning, and then I'm playing at the end, and a little bit in the middle. But please come down and see us. It's going to be an awful lot of fun. And like I like to say every week, please keep in the forefront of your minds our mothers, fathers, sons and daughters, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, sons and daughters, and on foreign soil. Please do something artful. Do it for them. Listen to some rock and roll. It can only make you feel young. Thank you, gang. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye now.